You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
The Foreign Secretary went to number 10 this morning for the Cobra meeting before heading to Parliament.
Order statement, the Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs.
His initial words in Parliament were tough.
Under international law, Iran had no right to obstruct the ship's passage, let alone board her. It was therefore an act of state piracy, which the House will have no hesitation in condemning.
Given the times we live in, the diplomacy is tricky. When it comes to Iran, we're part of Europe, with clear blue water between the UK and the US.
We will now seek to put together a European-led maritime protection mission to support safe passage of both crew and cargo in this vital region. It will not be part of the US maximum pressure policy on Iran, because we remain committed to preserving the Iran nuclear agreement.
Last month, the Americans asked the UK to contribute to a maritime force in the Gulf to counter Iran. This, they say, just proves their point.
So the responsibility in the first instance falls to the United Kingdom to take care of their ships. But Brian, you know this story. This isn't because of American sanctions. This is because the theocracy, the leadership in Iran, their revolutionary zeal to conduct terror around the world for now 4 decades continues.
Of course we believe that diplomatic solutions to this problem exist. When the British stop an Iranian ship demonstrating hostile behaviour, they shouldn't expect us to show tolerance. When you illegally seize a ship off Gibraltar, and even the Spanish believe that you have done this unfriendly and hostile act in their waters, we don't deem it necessary to show tolerance.
A court in Gibraltar ruled that the ship could be held for another month. But some maritime lawyers say only EU-flagged ships have to obey EU sanctions on Syria, an argument that could help the British release it. In Tehran, today's news was dominated by the detention of 17 Iranians who had allegedly spied for the CIA. The story got the feature film treatment. In the end, the great Satan is a more important enemy than the little Satan. But Iran is determined to use whatever leverage it has on land, in the air or at sea.
Lindsay Hilson there. Well, I'm now joined by Vali Nasser, a former senior advisor to the US State Department and professor of Middle East Studies at Johns Hopkins University. Vali Nasser, thanks very much for talking to us this evening. We'll come to the Americans in a moment. But first of all, what do you think the Iranians are trying to achieve here?
Well, this is a retaliation for British seizure of their tanker. Iran believes that Great Britain did this at the behest of the United States, and as a way of helping the United States apply maximum pressure on Iran. And since they are in this tit-for-tat back and forth with the United States, they decided that they're not going to let the capture of the tanker go without a reciprocation. They've captured the British tanker. The signal is that they will act in kind when taken action against, and they're also going to exact the cost from Great Britain for doing the United States bidding.
Well, you've heard the Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt today saying the UK will create this protection force, but with the Europeans, not with the US, making it very clear that the UK is not part of President Trump's policy of maximum pressure. Will that be enough to satisfy the Iranians?
No, because those are words. The Iranians view this action in Gibraltar was taken at the behest of the United States. The United Kingdom broke with other European countries in taking that decision. In fact, it was criticized by Spain. And the fact remains that their tanker is still held in Gibraltar. So I think the solution will come in some kind of a diplomatic negotiation where the Iranians will release the British tanker and the British will release the Iranian tanker. And Iranians hope that this episode is enough for the United Kingdom not to repeat that sort of action on the behest of the United States again. And in addition, some of Mr. Hunt's comments have to do with the fact that the United States actually has disavowed any support for Britain in this crisis and has said that Britain is on its own and has to take care of this problem on its own.
But in terms then of the increasing tension between the US and the Iranians, You know, what is the US strategy here? We know that sanctions are hitting the Iranian people very, very hard. The hope, presumably, that the Iranians will soften their position. But it could go the other way, couldn't it?
It is the other way. In other words, the maximum pressure strategy has in fact failed. The idea that a maximum pressure would force the Iranians to quickly surrender, put their tails between their legs and come to the table and negotiate a much better deal with the United States has proven to be false. Iran has decided to escalate tensions, to push back and to be defiant, and to force a risk of war on the United States and its allies, and in fact even has shown willingness to scuttle the nuclear deal. So the maximum pressure is not doing what it was supposed to do, which was to make the Iranians cave in. What it's doing is actually increasing the risk of war, and I don't think that was President Trump's intention when he set down this course.
So very briefly, where do you see this going at the moment?
Well, I think at some point in time, we're going to end up in war between the United States and Iran in the Persian Gulf, or that the two sides have to find their way to the table. But the Iranians will come to the table only if the U.S. changes its tack and backs off from the maximum pressure strategy.
Oil, the U.S. this week seized 4 Iranian oil tankers going towards Venezuela.
Yeah, not supposed to do that.
Yeah, they're going to go to Houston. I'm wondering what you're going to do with that oil, and if this is
We'll be announcing we have 4 tankers. They're going to Houston, and they're there. They're not supposed to be doing that. Iran's not supposed to be doing that, and so we did. We seized the tankers, and we're moving them and moved to Houston.
Mr. President, there is breaking news tonight from the FBI. In a rare late-night press conference, the Director of National Intelligence and the head of the FBI say Iran and Russia have obtained voter information and that Iran is using it to send threatening emails to Democratic voters ahead of the election. We get more now from CBS's Jeff Pegues.
Good evening. The rare press conference by the nation's top intelligence and law enforcement officials called out both Iran and Russia.
We have confirmed that some voter registration information has been obtained by Iran and separately by Russia.
Specifically, officials say Iran was behind emails that people received in at least 3 states, purportedly from the Proud Boys, a group that President Trump has had difficulty condemning for its violence.
Stand back and stand by.
We are in possession of all your information. You will vote for Trump on Election Day, or we will come after you. Proud Boys member Enrique Tarrio denied that they were behind it.
Whoever did this should serve a long time in prison.
Analysis by CBS News shows that the emails were routed from servers overseas, obscuring their origin.
What we're seeing right now with the elections and in this hypercharged environment is this desire to sow fear and intimidation into voters and to prevent people from voting, to scare them away from voting.
We are not going to tolerate foreign interference in our elections.
Tonight, federal officials did not reveal how the voter data was obtained.
Welcome to the Cryptoteacher. And guys, you know I come back with that second video just to make you think. Now the drums are beating, guys. The war drums are beating. Remember I told you World War III is definitely coming down the line. Now I had to go back just to connect the dots. So I went back to last year. And basically the British had took Iran tankers. And then Iran took British tanker. And then what happens? Then we take 4 of the Iranian tankers that were going to Venezuela. So now we're starting to piece this war together. This bankers war, guys. You know, every war was created by the bank. Now we see that Iran and Russia, you know how they do the media, is interfering in our election. Why they will interfere with our election, I have no reason why. But we all know what? They played the Hegelian dialectic to move up this war drum. So basically, look out for the psyops, because the psyops are definitely coming. When Trump won the first time, it was Russia interfering with the election. And they ran with that probably about 6 to 9 months. So they're definitely going to run with this. But this time they've added in Iran. And why did they add in Iran? Because of the tensions. Them actually supplying Venezuela with oil. So we know Russia got included last year because, of course, they were helping out Syria in that situation. So we see how the New World Order starts it up. So therefore, they can get this war drum running, guys. Remember, guys, the Fed can't come to you and say, hey, I stole your money. And then you would have chaos all in the streets. They can't say that. They have to come with a reason. We had the C word. That was the first reason. Of course, we're going to have another big event, another big crisis. Why? Because you can do things in a crisis you've never been able to do. So don't waste it. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Never waste a good crisis. And when it comes to the economic crisis, don't waste it.